Sorry, I've been talking all along and talking to myself. Sorry, let me start over. So basically, what I was saying is we have the first of four series, which we call the mini webinars. The mini webinars are actually then aimed at throwing out certain thoughts, certain ideas that will help us think and process where we are as a nation, where we are as fathers, and in this journey of fatherhood. And what we want to do is just get the conversation going, put thoughts out there in the form of mini webinars, which are very short. And in doing that, we want to bring about certain ideas and thoughts that we can take forward. So the first one in this series is the one on asking the very pertinent question: are fathers really free? Are dads really free? And what do we mean by that? So in 1994, South Africa went into the national elections and elected a new government, thereby ushering a new dispensation of what we believe to have been freedom. And this is freedom from a system that has taken away systematically the black father from the family, from the homelands to the migrant into the migrant labor system, where the father had to leave his family and go into a place where he didn't know and start and work there and start a new life without his family, without the support structure. And that then the home was left bare without him, even though the mother was there, even though the children and other family and relatives were there. But the father was left out of the picture. And so women were left to raise children by themselves in the absence of fathers. And that became an atrocity to fatherhood. That became an atrocity for children. And throughout the decades, then the mind of the man, the mind of the father was altered, and it became a generational thing where fathers then begot other sons who then followed on the same pattern. We then had daughters born into those families, into those children whose fathers were absent, and they had learned a different culture of men not being there, or men just coming once in a while into the family and just doing whatever bare minimum they could because they were there to just celebrate with the family. Fast forward to today, fast forward to so many initiatives that have been started so that we could put the father back into the picture. And we need the father back in the picture because a lot of the societal ills, if not all of them, we see them because the father is absent. The father is not there in the picture. And children grow up without fathers. Children grow up in pain, needing their fathers, but they're not there. Needing a present and positive father who is not there. And no one and no positive male is there to show them how to. So, fast forward to this day and age where initially, from fathers being present, the culture changed to fathers being totally absent. And the statistics for absent fatherhood went that way. And we are now gradually seeing them taper down. Although some organizations or some platforms will seek to give us a different narrative that the statistics are still high. If we compare to a time when fathers were just not there at all to where we are now, we will see that the statistics are actually dropping. And fathers are realizing that I need to be there for my children. But more than that, fathers have realized the need to connect with their own children because of their own fatherhood wound, where they realize that I need to be there so that my child does not go through the same things that I went through. And therefore, being present is no longer a negotiable, it's a must. Being present is no longer something that a father can, "Eh, maybe I will, maybe I won't." And to all the fathers who are not there, we're saying to them, it's time you make your way to your child's life. But it's not going to be easy because you don't know how to be a present and positive father. You don't know what you don't know. You don't have the tools. Maybe you've never seen fatherhood modeled. But we're still saying, nonetheless, go in and be part of us as dads in the picture, where we then advocate for the fathers, for children to have fathers in their lives. And the fathers who are there are admitting and saying, we are not perfect. We're doing the best we can with whatever resources we have, but we're still moving forward. And therefore, as a father, when you then start to be a present father, you then realize certain things. One among those is you cannot parent the way you want to parent. And what do I mean? There has been a culture where women and mothers raise children in a different way. And when they raise children in that way, and you come in as a father, can you raise a child the way a woman would raise a child? And the answer is no, because you don't know how to be a woman. You don't know how to have the instinct of a woman or of a mother specifically. Whether that mother is biological or adoptive or surrogate, whichever word you might want to use there. You cannot, as a father, parent or raise a child the same way a mother would. And therefore, then that gap remains. Even in a child's life, if they can have a mother raise them throughout their life, but when a father has not been there, there'll always be that gap that a child needs, where they get to see and get to have a feel of a father being present. And so when you come in as a father, there is a way in which you would parent according to your paternal instincts. And when you come in and you start parenting your way as a father, there's going to be that social and cultural backlash that says, no, but why do you even want to do this? Women are there, do that. Why do you even want to do this? You could hire someone else to look after your children and you could do what men do. And that's what we're fighting. Um, and that's the culture that we're trying to eradicate in our societies, culturally, that men cannot and should not be raising children. Trust me, it is there, it is prevalent. But there are also men who have been fighting against that, fighting for present and positive fatherhood, showing that fathers need to be there. Fathers are a mandatory requirement as much as mothers are in a child's life. So that's the first thing, your cultural barriers as a father that you experience. And should you get past those, you then have certain limitations where you may be financially challenged as a father to just be free to parent the way you would want to parent, because the first prerequisite for you to just come into the picture is that you must provide financially. And when you cannot, then your fatherhood is immediately in question. And then we ask, is really fatherhood about money, or is fatherhood about something else? And what can we then do to change that? That is what we are then initiating such conversations to say, let's change that. You don't necessarily need the money to be a positive or a good father. I know a story of a father who, even when he didn't have a job, he didn't have any income, he was staying at home and he still looked after his two children, a boy and a girl. He would go take them to school every morning, carry their bags, walk them to school, get to school, drop them off, and then come back home. He knows what time they get off from school. He would be there at the gate waiting for them, pick them up, carry their bags, walk with them, engage them about their school day until they get home, and then he prepares them. He did that up until he even was then economically able to provide for their other needs. And you wouldn't say that father was a bad father because he didn't have any money. And for all the fathers who think that they need to be in the picture financially, we're saying you need to be in the picture much more than financially. But if you cannot be in the picture financially, there are other things that you can still provide. So, as a father, are you really free to be a father even with your economic challenges? And that's the question we ask. Once we get past that, we then look at the working environment, the corporate environment. Does it allow fathers to be present? Does it allow fathers to parent the way they want to parent? Does it allow for a father to take time off without being judged? Because most places, if a father was to say, I need to leave now because I've been called by the school and my child is not well, there would be a question. Why you? Where's the mother of the child? Similarly, even the schools themselves, when even if you can register the child as a father, they first ask, where is the mother? And yet when the mother is coming, there's never a question of where is the father. It's very few schools who are woke enough to ask, where is the father of the child? And when you then come back to the scenario of being in a corporate space and you as a father, you want to take time off just to look after your child, or even the mother is there, both of you are there as the child's parent, and you as the father say, I'm taking time off to look after my child, they'll ask, where's the mother? And fathers, therefore, are not free to be the kind of parents that they want to be. They are not given the space to parent in the way that they would want to, because there's always an expectation that it's the mother who has to do this. It's the mother who has to be there. When the child is sick, it has to be the mother who comforts the child. But why can't it not be the father? Even if you were to take your child to the clinic or to the doctor, as much as others may resist the temptation to ask, others do. So where's the mother of the child? But when the mother is there, they never ask, where is the father of the child? Unless something is required from the father. And usually, when something is required from the father, it's usually in the form of money. And so that's why we're saying that has to change. But the father is not free to parent the way he wants to be free. He wants to do that. And as we celebrate, as we commemorate the National Freedom Day, what does it really signify for the fathers, for the dads? What does it really signify for the black father, for the colored dad, for the Indian dad, even for the white dad? Can you really parent the way you, as a father, would want to parent? Or are you limited by other people's expectations of you as a father and as a man? Why aren't we changing it? Why aren't we challenging it? Can we just challenge that? Can we say, it's enough? I'm here and I'm going to do it my way. Why is it that schools will start with the mother when they want to communicate? majority, if not almost all of the communication will come focusing on the mother. They will seldom say parent or father first, unless it's things that are specifically geared for fathers. Are dads really free to be parents and to parent the way they want to? When a dad is strong enough and they grab a child and they throw them up in the air, have you ever seen how mothers or the women around cringe? If there's confidence in his abilities, they would cringe, but they would let him. Others who don't have confidence in him and his abilities, they will stop him. And there's a certain thing that happens when a father is present in the life of a child. There are certain things that they teach to both a boy and a girl child. And that's why, if you look at the logo of dads in the picture, we don't focus on the girl child or the boy child. We focus on both of them. Because as a dad, you are required to be there for both of them. Because from a girl's perspective, she needs to know the benchmark for what a man looks like, for how it is like to relate to a man, how a woman relates to a man. She needs to see that from the parents. And if the mother is not there, she needs to relate herself with that male in her life other than her brother, because the brother is a peer, but the father is an elderly. A father represents a form of authority. And it is then where she can learn to model authority. It is then where she can learn to see what a father is like, what a father does when he's present. And a father sets the benchmark for her that one day, if and when she has her own children and the father is there, the benchmark is high. And for a boy child, a father is needed because he needs to walk and see how the father walks. The father takes the steps this way, he takes his own steps, but he does not walk on the footsteps of his father because he's not his father, but he needs to derive some part of his identity from seeing his father in action. And if that father is always constrained by don'ts and no's, whenever he's trying to be a dad, then he pulls back and he is not the father he wants to be. When he's told that he cannot say certain things to a child, around a child, yes, I agree, there are certain things that are maybe age appropriate, and maybe some things should not be said to and in the presence of children. But when that situation is always a no, then the freedom to be a dad is limited. And then we move on to the other aspect. When a father has been removed from the picture and the child seeks the father and the father seeks to be with his child, and the father then decides to go through the system, and in going through the system he battles social workers, He battles the courts. He has to stand in front of a magistrate who judges him, who looks at him and thinks, "You're guilty. That's why you're here." He has to sit in front of a social worker who is biased towards the mother. And everything he does and says, he's judged. And whatever efforts he makes towards being a present and positive father, they are second guessed. They will never question a mother's toxicity until it is extreme, but they will automatically assume that if this man wants a child, maybe at some point they will do A, B, C, and D to the child. And by the way, those dads who have done those things, those atrocities to children, have not done us justice. But it's not all of us who have done that. And yet all of us get to be painted with the same brush. Similarly, there have been cases where women have poisoned children, their own children. But it's never assumed that all mothers will do the same when they have sole custody of children. So if we are to judge the father, then we might as well also judge the mother equally. But the social working system here is not favorable to the dad. It's not. And we ask, are dads really free to be the parents they want to be? Are dads really free to parent the way they want to parent? And it's about time we tackle that. And honestly so. I know that maybe some people will come across this at a later stage and they will question, yeah, how could you say this? And you definitely find holes and poke whatever argument I've made. But what solutions are we bringing to the table? What solutions are we bringing that will help, firstly, enable the dad to be a dad the way he wants to be a dad? What solutions are we bringing to the table that will help even within the system, where a magistrate will sit and look at both the mother and the father and see them as parents, and then ask objectively within themselves who brought who and why are these two here? And while listening to both of them, whatever their cases may be, and ask him or herself what is in the best interest of the child. And when they receive a report from a social worker and they read it and they study it and they ask themselves, what are the biases that are coming through in this report from this social worker? Has this social worker been completely objective? Some years ago, I learned the art of writing an essay that you first consider the one point, the counter argument, and you go through it, you deliberate on it, you argue for it, and then you come back and then you argue for your point. Then eventually you can then come up with the conclusion. And I don't know, I've never seen one, and I sure do hope that there is a social worker out there who does both. They look at the situation of the mother, they look at the situation of the father, they look at both arguments, they look at both disadvantages and advantages of both parents, and then eventually say, I've heard both sides. And now let me hear the child, however old the child is. Let me hear the child. And in hearing the child, take all these three arguments, all these three presentations, and consider what is in the best interest of the child or the children. And with that, make a recommendation. A recommendation that will not necessarily favor the parents, but will favor the child. That no matter how the parents are arguing, how much they hate each other, how much each is criticizing the other, they come up with a solution that is best for the child. And that's what we're asking. And in that, it enables the father to parent the way he knows how to parent. Whether he gets to learn, whether he gets to fumble along, then let him, as long as it's not detrimental to the child. If his parenting is motivated by love and the need to see the child grow and focus on the best interest of the child, then let it be. Let him be. There are so many other elements within society and within and around the father that limit him from being a free parent. Perhaps then I've also gone about in a different way in terms of bringing the topic and also bringing the answer at the same time. Maybe this should have been just an open-ended question. Are dads really free? But I couldn't resist it. And maybe it's because we need to bring those solutions to the table rather than just leaving questions. Yes, questions are necessary, questions are required, but are they going to help? We need to ask and answer those questions. And I hope that these thoughts that I've shared will come and make us all think. Look at fathers and think, maybe let's see how he parents. And where we disagree with his parenting style, we see where we can raise that. And how is it doing the best that he knows how, or is he intentionally being maybe a bad parent? Or is it a bad parent because we perceive his parenting style as bad compared to our own? And those are all the things that we need to evaluate before we jump in, especially in criticizing. Those are all the things that we need to consider before we think that that parent is not being a good parent. Yes, there are things that can be absolute when it comes to bad parenthood. There are things that should not be done when we are parenting our children. A friend of mine always says we must raise children perfectly, but we are not seeking to raise perfect children. We're just raising them perfectly. And what that means is what will come from the feedback that comes out of this conversation. Or maybe it's a one way. But I know that you will engage. I know that you will think about this. And I know that you will share this and we will have more conversations. But for now, I've gone about for half an hour. And what I'll do is I'll allow you to just think about this, share your thoughts. If you're a dad, are dads really free? If you're a mother, what have been your observation, especially within South Africa, within Africa, and then within Black fathers, Black families? Let's start there, because that's where the pandemic of absent fatherhood is most prevalent. And if we can reverse that, we will not win now. But one thing we can do for sure is start. And we have started. And we are seeing fathers being more and more present. And in them being more and more present, how are they impacting the space of fatherhood, the narrative of fatherhood? So you and I have a responsibility. You and I have a task. Let's honestly ask the question, if you're a dad, am I free to be the dad that I want to be? If you're a mother and he's been there, have I limited him in being the parent that he can be? Not the way I want him to be, but the way he can be. And once we have that answer, let's start working on it. Because this can only benefit our children. And when it benefits our children, then slowly we're healing the father, we are healing the family, we're healing children, we are raising children wholesomely, we are raising children perfectly. And guess what? Our world becomes a better place because we have focused on the children. Everything we do, it must be focused on the children. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And definitely, thank you for your time. And mostly, thank you for just staying until now. Have a blessed day.